Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Voice Mood. I'm your host, Olivia Peck, your local millennial voice teacher. I've been a voice teacher for about 10 years now. If you have questions about singing, let me know in the chat. I will do my best to answer them. And I'm happy you're here. So thank you for joining me. I have so much I want to talk about today because it's been a big week for singing between the Super Bowl and a lot of the questions I have on my YouTube channel. So I'm going through the questions from the past couple of weeks and talking a little bit about the vocalists, the very famous vocalist on the Super Bowl. So I'm excited to talk about that. Let's go ahead and get started. I had just to give you a overview of what we're going to talk about today. Being a professional musician is something we're going to talk about. Timbre. I have a video on vocal timbre, so we're going to talk about that. Sitting versus standing when singing, and posture. Vowels. We're going to talk about so much. And I would also like to cover the halftime show, Charlie Puth, Whitney Houston, Kate Bush came up as well. It's all going to be talked about, okay? I'm going to try to cover it all. Let's start with this question about timbre, which I think is really interesting. Nothing to do with their ability, as in my opinion, both are great singers, but I love Kate Bush, yet Whitney Houston makes me cringe. What timbres do they have? Okay, this is a really interesting comment to me because it brings up something important about timbre. So, as I say in my timbre video, timbre is not just the sound. So, you have a trumpet versus a trombone. They have different sounds, even if they're playing the same note, right? Timbre also takes into account the listener as well, the person who describes the sound. People have preferences, they describe sounds differently depending on who they are. But we do talk about voices having similar timbres, warm versus bright, dark, um, rough. There's different ways to describe sound. So when we talk about Whitney Houston versus Kate Bush, yeah, I would say they have different timbres. And that's where you get into, well, what's your preference? For instance, there are artists that are super famous, super popular that maybe I don't love listening to their voice, but that's just me. Okay, so talking about specifically Whitney Houston and Kate Bush, since we're talking about the Super Bowl today, anyways, I thought let's play a teeny tiny clip of Whitney Houston singing, okay? Just to give you a sense of her voice if you aren't sure. This is something that we notice about Whitney Houston, I would say, is that she has a more covered tone. Say, instead of say, it's more covered. So it's a little warmer, a little darker. I don't have a video of Kate Bush, but it's a little more light. It's brighter. It's maybe maybe not as warm, okay? Definitely not as dark. So those are some differences in their timbre. And a lot has to do with if you look at, Whitney Houston's vowels, just go ahead and watch her vowels and how tall they are. Her vowels are really tall. Say, if you look at her mouth. So, can is another one. Can. She's not doing can. So that is what contributes a lot to our timbre, our sound, is how we're forming our vowels. And I have a video on vowels as well, but it's the way that your lips, your tongue, jaw all interact. So when you do like an E vowel, E, as opposed to E, two different sounds. same note. And this is what really shows us the difference in singers. And that's not the only thing that contributes to timbre. It's a big one, but there are other things as well that contribute to timbre. For instance, just your the way you are built. The on the inside will I mean, if you think of all of us being an instrument because that our voice is us, right? Our vocal tract. So the way we're built, the way we're shaped in our vocal tract and the acoustics of us contributes as well to our timbre, the way we sound. It's very fascinating. So, fun to play around with, fun to kind of push the limits of, your timbre. And so great question. Let's go to another one here. This is kind of getting to a different topic. I want to get better and become a professional so I can make money. Same. No, I'm obviously I'm a teacher and I love it, but also a performer to a certain extent. Could I do that full time? No. And I've been doing this since I graduated college in 2015. So the thing about being a professional, making money, that's where you have to look at you as an artist as not just a performer and having that skill set. You're going to also want to think about you as a business, okay? This is a big part of the conversation. So, yes, you want to have a great skill set. You want to know how to be a professional musician, sound good, turn heads, get noticed, um, cross all your T's and dot all your I's. Make sure you are like a high quality performer can put out a high quality product. But you also have to think about what that means as basically your own small business owner. I have a friend who performs around town and manages that on her own. She doesn't have one manager or anything, but she books the places she performs. She has a way to showcase what she does. She knows what her vibe is. She has a list of songs that she does. So it's like you want to set yourself up for what you want to do. If you want to play guitar in a band, that's one avenue. If you want to be like I really like the idea of being like a session artist where you do backup vocals, that's another avenue. Do you want to teach music? That's another avenue. And then you build your business based on what are you already good at? What do you want to learn? What do you want to be like the best of the best of and shoot for? So that's something you want to think about when you want to make a career, make a living off of being an artist, being a musician, a vocalist. So, great question. And it's just baby steps. And I definitely advise if you want to make money as a musician, get into the business side, learn what you have to do to be your own business. Actors and performers are small business owners, essentially. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions about singing, and I will do my best to answer as your local millennial voice teacher. We are going to talk about the Super Bowl today, so stick with me if you want to hear about that, but it won't be too long now. Let's go to this question about so many things. I realized after 10 years of trying to learn to sing better, I've been struggling with vowels. However, I sing like I'm British. When I sing like I'm British, I can carry my belt to high tenor C, chest dominant, and mixed voice. When I don't, my mix becomes more head mixed. Not only that, I find while studying voice acting, I now observe when the singer takes a breath before they sing the next phrase. Can you help with good vowel placement exercises? Not only that, I notice some singers breathe in the middle of a phrase. Thoughts on that? And one more question. What's the best posture when sitting to sing, like at keys, guitar, and drums? Thanks. Okay. This is a really great question. So many things to cover. So, talking about vowels and belting, that's the first part of this question. So when you think about belting, it's kind of described by a lot different ways by different teachers, but the way it's described as belting is a chest dominant sound. But it can be different depending on the singer. So talking about Whitney Houston versus um, Whitney Houston versus like Kate Bush, their belts are going to be different. So, like if you're talking about meow or meow, that kind of belt versus oh, those are two different types of belt. One was more tall, chesty, as opposed to more clear, whiny, twangy. So when you're trying to get different sounds out of your belt, you can look at the shape. And that's why this person who asked the question was saying, I get a different sound when I do a British accent, for instance. That makes sense because the shape of your vowels shapes the sound. So we will talk about that in a second. No, this is not pre recorded. Great question. If you have any singing questions, let me know. That's what we're talking about today. Any singing questions, and that's what it is. It's a Q&A, so we're live, baby. All right, so when we're talking about vowel exercises that would help you in this regard, there's several different belting specific exercises that do give you different sounds that I would play around with. So my favorite, you all know, is the meow, meow, meows. So when I am getting into my mixed voice, I do meow, 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 meow. And if I were to sing with that sound, it would sound like this. Gets me in a nice belty placement, a very specific sound. There are other ones though that you can do based on you. So some people like the nya 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 nya. If I sang like that, it would sound like this. A little heavier, a little bit more nasally. So that shapes the sound. Another one that I really like is bwah, 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 bwah. And that's kind of a cool mix of the weight of meow almost, and then that twang in there too. And so bwah is another exercise you can do to shape that sound. Some people, like I have a student who does one where she goes, "Hey, taxi," and that gets her into her belt, that like calling across the street belt. So that's another sound. That's another one you could try. I personally don't do that one for me because it kind of brings on some tension. That's why you kind of have to find what works best for you. Some people they'll sing the whole song on an E. So if you want to belt a song, you can put it in an E vowel like E, and that helps train their sound by putting it in an E. You could do A. You could do that. So playing with different vowels. One more vowel exercise that I recommend is going through your range one note at a time. And I do this with my students a lot. Ni, ne, na, no, nu. Go up by half step like that. You'll hear which notes are not quite as strong, not quite as clear. Maybe it's in your break, and you can specifically massage that note on the different vowels. So for me, like F sharp, ni, ne, feels very awkward. So I like to massage that and do every vowel on that note, ni, ne, na, no, nu, and try to get it nice and clear. So yes, if you have a question, let me know in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. I want to know what's going on in your singing world and see if I can help you with your vocals. All right, so I want to go back to this other question here. And we've got a question in the chat. So let's answer that first. Olivia, what is breath support and how can you feel it while singing? Is it important or overrated? Anyone talks about breath, but I don't really understand how to use it some magical singing way. Oh my gosh. Question of the hour. You're so right. It's confusing because breath is a huge topic and it depends on what you're singing. So if you're singing a more pop style, that usually a belty style, pop style, rock style doesn't take as big of breaths. It's more similar to your speaking voice. So that style of singing is more based on speaking style breaths, managing a breath size that isn't super duper big a lot of the time. Whereas in classical singing, if you're singing something with a more open tone, a little more old school, caro mio ben, you want to take a bigger breath. So that's why uh it matters, big breath, small breath. So starting just with that is important. Because the size of your breath really matters going in. Now, as far as support goes, okay, brought in the right size breath, but now how do I manage it? The best way I would say to manage your breath, use breath support is to train it with SOVT exercises. So SOVT exercises are semi occluded vocal tract exercises, which means humming, lip trills, brrr, or my personal favorite, blowing bubbles in a water bottle. It creates a resistance for you when you're blowing bubbles, for instance, or doing a lip trill because your mouth is closed or you're blowing bubbles in water. So it's a nice little workout for the muscles around your vocal folds and strengthens them, trains the breath size you need, and it also is pretty therapeutic because of that back pressure. So if you have something covering your mouth, and you're singing, or you're closing your mouth and you're singing or doing something like that, it makes it so that the air is supporting your vocal folds on both sides, not just underneath, but also on top. Kind of like the therapy of stretching in water, because your body is supported and your muscles are supported by the water. So when you stretch and exercise, it's more therapeutic than if you're not in water. So I really advise getting that muscle memory down through that. And doing, especially blowing bubbles in water, is really beneficial. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for the comments. Hi, Amy. Great to see you. Thanks for being here. I'm really happy y'all are here and asking questions about singing makes a big difference to me. Okay, so let's go on to another topic that was talked about in this big question here. So we've got talking about studying voice acting and observing breathing, and that's really cool. Yeah, some singers do breathe in the middle of the word. When you start studying the voice and going through what you're supposed to do when you sing, yeah, you do want to not breathe in the middle of a word. You want to sing through the words, sing through the phrases. So you wouldn't want to go, "Oh, say, can you see?" That would be kind of weird and noticeable and sort of mess up the flow. With that being said, once you're a star, you can break the rules, but you can break the rules even if you're not a star. But what I'm saying is, rules get broken in singing, the ones that we learn. So something to realize. Okay. One more question, I think, in here. Oh, best posture for sitting when you're playing an instrument. So when you're singing, you want your rib cage lifted, you want to be able to breathe freely, you want to elongate your spine. I heard just this past week, John Henny is a great teacher. You can find him on YouTube as well. He says, pretend your head is like a helium balloon and it's pulling up your spine. And that's great singing posture. Great way to think about it, great visual. So you can play around with that. Um, and that might help you elongate your spine, sit taller, even if you're sitting, even if you're sitting at the keyboard playing keys, you're still able to like keep everything kind of lifted. That's important. So play around with that. If you're hunched, it's harder to breathe freely, of course. Okay, let's go on to talking about the Super Bowl singing. Very fun. And yes, feel free to ask a question in between. I'd love to do my best to answer. Okay? Let me know what you're wondering about singing. First, let's go to Charlie Puth. All right. All right. If you want to watch the whole thing, you can go to, watch it on YouTube. But basically, Charlie Puth did a great job. What's very interesting is what's very interesting about that is Charlie Puth has outwardly said, he uses autotune. And in this performance, you can really hear it, in my opinion. That smoothness, that sort of robotic sound, that type of thing. That's something that you can hear in his performance. What's really interesting is when you go back in time and you go back to the Whitney Houston performance, you go, oh, that one doesn't sound like it has as much auto-tune. Or you go to the Brandi Carlile performance and you don't hear it as much. It doesn't mean it wasn't pre-recorded necessarily, but it's interesting to kind of hear that. And I wanted to point that out because we talk about auto-tune on this channel. And I saw that he got high praise for his performance, which he should because it was very good singing. But it's also like a great example of that was probably pre-recorded. I'm not accusing him of that, and I honestly don't care. It's the Super Bowl. It's outside. It's windy. You might want to pre-record something like that, and they typically do. So, whatever. He's a great musician, but it's just interesting to have that as an example. And I think he's a great teacher, and I learned so much from him. Honestly, he has some really good content about music out there, but a good example of that. Okay, here's a question. I am a tenor and I feel difficult to sing G4 and above. My voice breaks and my throat strains a little. I can do the exercises and hit higher notes in those, but when I try to sing, my voice breaks. This is a really good question, and I haven't heard you sing, so take this with a grain of salt. But what I would advise is doing those SOVT exercises to build up your strength and help you transition up to G4 and then try to maybe get a little higher. So doing exercises like touch your highest note. This is another one that was recommended by John Henny, actually. Touch your highest note. Do it again. See if you can go a little higher. It's a great way to stretch your vocal folds safely and gently. I really like this blowing bubbles in water with the straw, or you can do some more slides like that, like ma. The trick is, as you get higher, you want to think not necessarily louder or more intensity, especially if you get to a break. I always call it threading the needle for a reason. You want to think about that being a more narrow part of your voice when your voice comes into like a breaking point. So you want to lower the intensity, bring down the breath pressure. So we're not pushing the breath quite as hard as we get to that break. It's sort of a more gentle flow. So instead of it's more and think about a more whiny feeling as you go through there. So instead of it's more Does that make sense? Play around with that. That's why things like meow, 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 or nya, 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 nya help us get through our upper register, give it that clarity, get our voice out without straining. So, something to play around with. So, playing around with mixed belt, playing around with twang and SOVT exercises can help with that sliding up like that. Okay. Let me know if you have a question about singing. And I will do my best to answer. Make sure you are breathing. It's very important to singing and to life, being able to manage your air. Okay, let's talk about, first of all, I want to showcase these ladies. There's Brandi. So those violin players, I know them. So I had a question this week, and you're so welcome. That was, where did you go to school? Because they saw my degree back there, and they're like, did you go to University of Michigan? And I did. I went to University of Michigan, and I was a music education major. And the one of the ladies in that video, Shantae, where is she? Oh, there's the military. Bill Shore again, I think. She was playing with Brandi Carlile. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And I saw her and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And I checked my Facebook, and fortunately we're still Facebook friends after all these years. We had musicology class and probably a jazz class together too. She's really talented, very funny, and like sweet person. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was her. So that was so cool to see. It's really cool when you see like someone from school shine, and I see all the time, one of my friends was in a Super Bowl commercial. So it's really cool to see that and just root for them. So very fun, very, very fun. Should check out Brandi Carlile and her band. They're incredible musicians and just lovely people all around. Okay, let's talk about the Benny Blanco. So I really wanted to talk about this because a big theme has been breath control. Okay. And when I'm watching something like this, all I think about is how they're doing it vocally. I can't just unplug from being a voice teacher. And so the whole time I'm thinking, wow, like here's someone how do you auto tune something like rapping or these really quick lyrics that you have to do it live. You got to do it live. Okay. A lot of moving parts. That's super impressive. Being able to move like that and sing is insane. Like there's a reason why a lot of artists, they'll like Chapel Roan, they'll practice their set while running on a treadmill, because you have to learn how to manage your breath even when you're moving around. When I first started singing, I could not walk and sing at the same time. I will never forget this. I was in Italy, and I was doing like this big showcase thing, or school thing, not showcase, but we had to learn these opera scenes. And I just remember I could not sing and walk at the same time. First of all, that was opera. Opera is a little more athletic, I would say, maybe in just the way the breath support. I could only stand and sing. I had to learn how to like move and sing. Okay, here's a question. Have I understood correctly that your breaks are the point where your voice changes from chest to mix or to head? If so, can you change the point this happens? Wow, this is a super good question. I've never been asked this specifically before about can you change that? So, um, mixed voice is not I mean, I don't consider it a register. I do describe it that way sometimes, probably not on purpose, but mixed voice is more like a combination of like head voice and chest voice for lack of better words. So like Dewey is it's really more about register. So low, middle, high, and typically chest is on the bottom, head voice is on the top, and then you've got like the middle register, which could be like more head voice or mixed voice or I hope that makes sense. But basically, you have at least one place most likely in your voice where it transitions from one register to another, and you can hear it in those breaks if you go like, and you'll hear a crack or something. So, can you change it? That's the other question. Sometimes it just changes on its own. But, you go through life, your voice changes, you get older, you age, you might grow as a singer. I will say my breaks have stayed pretty consistent, and as far as, like, changing where they are, I think you just smooth them out is the best answer I can give right now. You just smooth them out because it has to do with, like, your body and your muscle memory and where your voice naturally shifts. So, it's kinda like a yes and no. I would say it just naturally smooths out from doing exercises and singing and working to smooth it out. Um And, like, doing exercises like with finding that twang or lowering the breath pressure as you go through your breaks, that kind of thing. I hope that makes sense. Goodness gracious. Okay, here's a question, getting into the depth. Reason I ask is I sing a song that is okay, but at points the song hits directly on my break, and to cheat, I just go up an octave and harmonize until I can drop it back on track. So, yeah, this is a great point. Yeah, you can do things to kinda work around your break, and when I was recording this past week for doing some demo track type things, um, I realized the things people do to manipulate their voice to kind of, like, um, uh, get through those breaks. So if you are singing the national anthem, for instance, and you're doing "And the rockets red glare," and that's right in your break, you might do, "And the rockets red glare," to kinda get around it like you're saying, Kevin, just sing something different, or you can change the vowel, "And the rockets red glare," whatever, that was also changing the note, but instead of doing red, maybe red. Hope that helps. That was a little bit of a crazy example, but you're right. You can just change things in a song to make it fit your voice. If you're able to do that, why not? I do it all the time. And that's why people have their own renditions of things because they make things fit their voice. Jumping a whole octave, you know, that's huge. That's, going like, instead of here, now you're here all of a sudden. It happens kind of an advanced tactic, but if it's working for you, I say go for it, Kev. Great question. Great question. La la la. Okay, y'all, this has been really fun. I think I'm going to wrap this up soon. We had a lot of trolls today. I'm so sorry. I don't know what the deal is. It must be the algorithm. Sometimes I just get a lot of trolls. So if I was like, like looking at the chat, like, I don't know. Um, that's why I was, like, a little distracted, but y'all have been great, the people asking questions, and I've had fun, um, doing this with y'all. So, hope this was helpful. If you have more questions about singing, ask them in the comments, and I'll answer on the next live. So, I will see y'all then next Wednesday at 10 AM Central Standard Time, and maybe I'll just do when we talk about trolls and stuff, it usually comes from the vertical feed. I don't have the issue with the horizontal videos ever. Well, sometimes you do, but it's just this the vertical feed. I get the craziest, like, comments sometimes. Uh, no, I'm not using a face filter, but I am using a ring light, and lighting is everything, y'all. In fact, if you go to my, website, oliviapeck.com, I have all of the stuff that I use for my setup and all that stuff, so I would definitely recommend if you are a content creator to try using some of the equipment, I recommend or whatever, but I do like, the stuff that I use, so anyway, lighting is everything. Okay, one more question. Does my bite affect the quality of my singing voice? Well, when you talk about acoustics, maybe. You're welcome, Amy. Thanks for being here, queen. Um, y'all are awesome. It might when you think about, like, your shape, your mouth shape and stuff, maybe, I mean, on a very small level, it's more like how I would say you probably are manipulating, your vowels and stuff. But that's an interesting question, your teeth and, your bone structure. Um Yeah, I mean, it does to a certain extent, but I don't know how much. You can control your timbre and your singing voice a lot. But yeah, I mean, also your jaw comes into it. I know a lot of people with TMJ, it does sometimes get in the way of your singing because of how you open your jaw, which is also important for singing, forward, back, down. So I guess yeah, it can. So that's a fun thing to explore. Good luck. Let me know if you discover anything about that. Okay, I really am going now. This was fun. If you want to take a voice lesson with me, you can check me out on oliviapeck.com. There's a thing to fill out on there, or you can select a time. This has been fun. All right. Take care of yourselves. Be safe and much love. Bye bye.